name is Cristian Chavira. I'm an undergraduate sophomore majoring in biochemistry and minoring in astrobiology. I currently work as an undergraduate research assistant in Dr. Sweezy's lab at the Cancer Center, where I currently work researching proteins that contribute to prostate cancer. Generally, it's a once a week, 2-hour and 50-minute section. So then you'll prep for that week. So you'll be given like a pre-lab sheet that you have to fill out, which is basically just to make sure that you know enough to actually be able to do the lab that day. You'll show up, and then in a in-person experience, at least from last year, you will have a sort of mini lecture. So maybe 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes longer if your TA deems necessary. We'll kind of go over that pre-lab, and we'll make sure that everyone's on the same page. So if you had some questions, that'd be prime time to ask them anything to clarify. And then right after that, you'd hop into doing your lab that you prepared for, and then you'll collect your data by the end of the section, and then likely have to prepare some kind of report. From my experience in high school, the labs were like a once every couple week endeavor that was pretty outlined. I was given a sheet that basically told me step by step how to do everything that I needed to do. But in college, especially in general chemistry labs, the experience was a little bit different in that there would be more prep that went into it. There were more documents on giving you more information on what was happening, what reaction was happening, and it was more a question of here are your tools, here are your skills, how do you get to this goal? So instead of follow these steps, is here's the tools for your job when you get to the endpoint. I think the biggest difference is that you're forced to be more independent with your studies. So if you end up falling behind, or if you're just stuck on something, generally your professor won't tap you, or your TA won't tap you on the shoulder and ask you, hey, do you need help on this very specific thing? It'll be up to you to say, hey, I have no idea what's going on. I need you to help me. And that can be pretty hard sometimes. But it'll definitely pay dividends if you reach out to other sources for help to make sure you get back on track. Questions. You'll probably have a lot of them, and it's part of the experience, so to speak. So your peers are a really good option. When I was working on these labs in my freshman year for general chemistry, I basically crammed a study room full of other peers, and we just ask each other questions because we just need the help. But outside of that, your professors are a really good option. Your TAs, especially for lab sections, and any mentors or advisors could also be helpful as well. That's a conversation that you should definitely have with your advisor when you're planning your schedule, just to talk about how much of a workload that you feel comfortable taking while being weary of overloading your schedule. No, I did my lab with zero experience at all. I mean, I wouldn't count my high school labs as labs. They were just mostly little experiments that you can do in your backyard, and I was still able to get an A. It's more of a test of investment of your time and effort than anything else, because they give you everything you need. So 151, 161 was more on the theory behind chemistry. Basically answering questions in terms of more than or less than when going through topics. So less emphasis on specific equations and crunching numbers, where 141 was placing that emphasis on those specific equations and actually calculating the specific effects that we're talking about. One thing I wish I knew before I took general chemistry was that that there would be TAs and TA office hours before I go. Basically meaning that your professor is not your only option, so to speak. So if you're intimidated by them, which can happen, or their office hours don't line up with your schedule, TAs are really good at what they do. So I would basically tell my freshman self to go there more often. So I guess a general tip beforehand is to find your classes before your first day. So there's typically like a couple days after move-in before classes start. And if you have anything in Confler, make sure you go there before. Speaking from first-hand experience, Confler is kind of a labyrinth. So just find the room beforehand, because some of the buildings, I don't know what happened. Just go look for it. If you are confused about something, you can ask your lab partner first. If your lab partner's confused, they can ask you. And if neither of you are too confident in your answer, you can always go to your TA, which are always willing to help you. So in terms of general chemistry, you're pretty sure you're required. And if you're not required, you definitely should keep a composition notebook with you, or just notebook in general, to record any kind of data, observations, etc. You can at least learn how to think through problems critically in general chemistry, especially in the lab section. Engineering is all about solving problems, yeah? And when you're in a chemistry lab, you encounter a lot of problems, and you have to account for them. You still got to get your data somehow. So you can at least take that away of how to think in a little bit of a different lens from your chemistry lab. So I ended up choosing the U of A for a couple of reasons. One of them, not to take lightly, is the amount of scholarship opportunities that the university offers. So I was lucky enough to get a couple scholarships that helped pay for a good chunk of my tuition. But another big reason is that the U of A is a Tier 1 research institution, meaning that they have a ton of labs. They have a ton of labs doing a lot of cool things. There's plenty of research opportunities, and the university is really geared to help you get into research labs if that's what you want to get